Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage as well as KJLP 88.9 on Palmer. You can also catch us online at katb.org. My name is Cammie and I'm here with my co-host Betty. How are we doing this afternoon, Betty?
I'm very well. I'm drinking my coffee.
You're still enjoying that coffee, huh?
I am.
And you're not a coffee drinker.
I'm not a coffee drinker, so you know I'll probably talk nonstop here real soon.
Good thing I can just shut off your mic over here. I've got control. We are so excited to have a special friend joining us in the studio today. We have Heather Gillis. How are you doing this morning, Heather?
Good, I'm well. Thank you.
Good. Just another story from another local woman. We just love that we can do this, that we can reach our community with stories from real women right here in our own community. So we appreciate you coming in and just being willing to share with these women a little bit about your story as well as what God's doing in your life. So once again, welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And we just kind of want to get things started, Heather, by having you tell us a little bit about your story, if you can do so. I know it's tough to summarize things up, but just tell us a little bit about what your story is.
Well, I am married for 13 years to a wonderful husband, and I have 2 living children. But 5 years ago, my husband and I endured the unthinkable tragedy of our son, our 3rd child, Bowen, who was born with a fatal kidney disease, and we did not know that when he was born. So then when the doctors came and told us when he was in the hospital, we've done all we can do. There's nothing else we can do. We knew at that time that it was his time to go to heaven. So 13 days later after he was born, we had to take him off of life support. And then that is the last time that we held him in our arms. But so actually yesterday was the 5-year anniversary of him passing away. So, but God is able to turn the tragedy into something beautiful. And even though our son's death was the most tragic thing that has happened in our lives, God has used it for the biggest blessing in our lives, more than we can ever think of or imagine. If you can think about that.
Yeah.
So, but he has used our son in a big way. He's one of the reasons why we are here in Alaska. And we are doing things that we would never have done before. And one of those is I wrote a book called Waiting for Heaven, which was in the beginning just me journaling and just writing just to heal. And God used it in a big way. To not only heal myself, but to use it to be able to come alongside others to help them walk through their journey as well.
Now take us back a little bit, Heather. Where did you live before you came up to Alaska?
Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona.
And tell us a little bit about what you had going on with what you were doing and what was your life path there in Arizona during that time?
Before we moved here, we had just built a house, because you could call it our dream house. We had only lived there about a year and a half. My husband was practicing in a oral surgery practice for the 9 years when we lived there in Arizona. And I had I worked as a nurse anesthetist, and I was working there and had a great job. My kids were, we had a great house, great neighborhood, family, friends. Our whole life was there. But then something God was doing in our hearts, and he was orchestrating all these things that we had no idea until one day that my husband came home and said, I want to walk away from this all, and I want to join the United States military. So when we were living in Arizona, we had lived there for 9 years. We had our family, our friends, good paying jobs. My husband was in oral surgery practice for 9 years, making great living. We had lived in the house where our son had passed away, and we knew that we couldn't live there anymore. But all the grief books say don't make any sudden changes until after a year. So we stayed in that house for a year, even though it was so hard, because every day we would walk by his room and, but there was the room, but no baby. So we decided that we would start over a whole new life by building a new house. And it was a great house, house that anybody could ever want. Had a pool, had, hardwood floors, granite countertops. It was our dream home. And After we had lived there about a year and a half, I had gone on a mission trip down to Honduras. And after I came back from that, I came back changed because I could no longer live in that house anymore. But I did not know how to tell my husband that. It was a burden for me knowing that my closet was the size of the homes down in Honduras. And that really burdened me. So I was struggling of having these conversations with God, just saying, okay, God, I know that this is what you're trying to tell me and lead me towards, but how do I tell my husband this? We just built this house, and how do I tell him that I want to walk away from this all? And one day, my husband came home from work, and he says, Heather, I think I just want to walk away from this all, and I want to join the United States Air Force. And you could only imagine my surprise, because here I'm struggling trying to find the words to say to my husband that I wanted to walk away from this all, that I knew that God was placing something in my heart to walk away from it all, but I didn't know how and I didn't know what to do. And to my amazement, God was orchestrating in his heart as well. And he's the one that I didn't have to tell him. You know, God is the one that did it all. So he was able to help us be able to walk away from this life that the world could see as anybody could want, but God was putting a different desire in our hearts. So you can say that God used our son in a major way to not fill our lives with more that the world wanted us to, but the more that he wanted us to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me about how, because when we were kind of talking offline a little bit about your story, and just as we've gotten to know each other, you said something that really stuck with me. You said, as I was sitting in that house, you loved to host and have people over. Mm-hmm. Tell me about when people would come over and how that would make you feel.
Well, when people came over, I mean, the house was a stunning house. I mean, you walk in, it had 9-foot ceilings, big, huge windows. It was a very beautiful house. So when anybody came into the house, everyone would say how beautiful the house was. And yes, the house was beautiful. And yes, I took it as a compliment. But the more the people said that they liked my house, the more I didn't want to live there. And I know that sounds so strange, but really what God was doing in my heart, I knew that by living in that house that no one would be able to see what God was doing in my heart. I felt like the house was taking that away from God. And I felt that I had to become less for God to become more. So by God putting that desire in my heart, it allowed me to not want that house anymore. Like it was easy for me to walk away. I didn't mind walking away from the house. So I didn't want people to walk into that house and say, I love your house. I wanted them to say, I love your heart, and what God was doing in it.
Yeah.
I can imagine that your friends, maybe some of your family, kind of thought you'd lost your mind.
Yes.
Because it sounds like the house you had would be, quote, everyone's dream home.
Just your life in general.
Yes.
Yes. And what everybody strives for.
Mm-hmm.
But you had the opportunity to witness to them.
Yes.
About what God was doing in your life. Can you share some of that with us, some of their comments, and then how that you could talk to them, how you could witness to them like you might not have had an opportunity before?
Right. Well, some people still don't get it. And it is interesting because when we tried to witness to people that this is what God wanted for us and these are the desires that God placed in our hearts, people didn't get it or understand it. And some still don't. So we had a hard time in the beginning being able to tell people why we were really walking away. And the only thing that I could really tell people was there's just some things you can't put a price tag on. Mm-hmm. And having the freedom to be able to spend time with your family and because that's the one thing that our son taught us, that life's so short and that we're here to enjoy life's precious moments, and that when we're filling it with the busyness and the chaos of this world, we're not able to enjoy life the way God intended us to. We're not able to live life the way God intended us to. So I feel that by God doing that, by taking that away, that house in our life that we were living, we're able to live more that God wants us to. And it's hard to be able to explain that to people. And we can only live the way we are living, and people just pray that people see that it's God, not us.
I can so identify with what you're saying because My husband will have passed away 5 years this September. And it has made me become very intentional
Yes.
about spending time with my grandchildren. I want them to know me, and I want to know them, and I want to pour into their life.
Yes.
And there is no price tag that you can put on that time with them. Every minute that I spend with my family, my children or my grandchildren, are absolutely priceless.
They're priceless. And the life that we lived before me, my husband lived in oral surgery practice. He worked in an oral surgery practice that it's very tough. It's almost like a second marriage when you have to run a practice. And he was not able to spend time with our children, go to their plays, go to their school parties. I mean, he is able to do all of that now. And it's just been so amazing. And you cannot put a price tag on that. And we don't want to live our life wishing that with regrets, wishing that we had done this and that just because we have to live a way the world says we should. We have to work. We have to do this and that and go to this activity and that activity. We didn't want that for our lives. And that was very much the life that we were in and that we saw. And we knew that we didn't want that for our children. We didn't want our children to live thinking that they were entitled and that we wanted them to have our love, not stuff. And that's all our house was doing. It was collecting a bunch of stuff. And as I was cleaning our house, I was just thinking, this isn't doing anything. I'm just cleaning a house that means nothing to me. And I just want to be with my kids. And by having this house, it took away the time that I wanted to spend with my kids. So by having less, I'm able to spend time doing more of the things that I want to do with my kids, spending time with them and being with them.
So do I understand correctly, you left Arizona and moved straight to Alaska?
Yes, that's where we were assigned.
And you've been here how long?
Year and a half.
Welcome to the military life.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if so we live on the base. We live in military housing, and it's so funny because we always ask each other, "Do you miss that house?" And we say no, and we're both like, we're happier now in this house than we ever have been our whole life. Like I honestly can say all the money, the more money I felt like that we made in Arizona, I felt the poorer I felt. But I feel that we are richer now than we've ever been. And I mean that by quality of life, by the time that we get to spend with our family and what we get to do together as a family. We're closer now together as a family than we've ever been.
How old are your children?
They'll be 7 and 9.
9.
Yeah.
Heather, you write a blog as well.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your blog and how we can access it.
So I write weekly devotionals on heathergillis.com, and these are Christian devotionals that are for encouragement, meant to give hope, but they're really just messages that God places on my heart. And I do series. I'm doing a series on kindness, but I'm actually about ready to enter into a new series called The Joy of Less, because we have I was a contributor to the Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Joy of Less, that just came out yesterday. And so now I'm going to be doing a series on the joy of less, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. And if you ever met my husband, this is the joy of less is fun for him too, because he loves to get rid of clutter. He loves just to get rid of stuff. Like he just doesn't even want stuff. It's so funny.
We put it on Facebook what the topics were going to be, and one lady said it was just completely overwhelming to her. She wants to live with less, but she doesn't know where to start.
Right.
Do you have any suggestions? I mean, selling your house to me is a big thing.
That definitely helps you get rid of clutter.
Yes.
One thing that has helped me, because my husband is so organized, and he has helped me, and I struggle with that and keeping things, and he's able to just process things very quickly, get rid of, keep. So just having those, you can have a get rid of pile, a keep pile, and a giveaway pile. I think that helps. But just having only space, if you only have a certain amount of space, you can't fill it with stuff. So you just have to be very intentional about what you bring in to your house.
Have you missed anything that you gave up? No.
It's so crazy. God is the orchestrator and does it all. I mean, I do miss my friends and family. I do, but I don't desire the same things. And that was just something that I prayed after our son had passed away, was, God, please put the desires in my heart that you desire for me. because, you know, I just wanted to live how he wanted me to live, because our son's life was not for nothing. And God has used our son's life in a big way in our life.
I want to ask you about that, Heather. The time after you lost your son, what was your walk with God like during that during the initial, onset of such a tragedy? And then what was it like during that first year for you? Was it hard to not be upset with God?
Right, it was. It's very strange, because God made everything how. Well, our son was born on he was born on my husband's birthday. And when my son died, our son died, he died on Holy Thursday. And if you can believe it, we got up and went to Easter that Sunday. And I really truly believe that God used that time that he died for a certain reason, because as I was sitting in church, I have been a Christian my whole life, and I have heard the Easter story my whole life, but never did I ever perceive God's pain of losing a son. And it's so strange, because I was mad at God, but it was almost like he immediately helped me not be mad at him, because it's almost like he just took my face and he was like, if anybody knows the pain you're going through, it's me. And he used that in a major, big way in my life to help me not be angry with him, even though I wanted to be. But my life before my son, I was a Christian, and I read the Bible, I prayed, I went to church, but I would definitely have to say that I was more of a check your box Christian. That, check prayer box, check my church box, and, and that's what made me a good Christian. And even though I knew that, I felt that I was in that bad routine. And after our son died, God showed me how to truly 100% surrender to him and give him not just part of me, but all of me. And it was like our son rid me of everything that was in the way of God. And by giving everything to him, it made more room for God. So I just really truly feel like the joy of last, the why we're here. It's really truly about making room for God. And if you have all that clutter in your heart, our hearts can be crowded, our lives can be crowded. It's just if they're crowded with all that stuff, there's not room for God to be able to do what he wants for us. And so my walk with him after he showed me how to rely on him 100% for everything. And I don't think I was doing that before.
How did you and your husband deal with the loss of your son? Differently or the same? And how did you guys have to extend each other a little bit of grace during that time?
And that's something else that God did for us as well, because couples, after they're losing a child, the divorce rate goes up to about 90%. And it was so amazing how God allowed each of us to accept each other's grieving, because I hear that a lot in couples' marriages after the loss of a child. My husband let me grieve the way I grieved, and I let him grieve the way he grieved. And there's all these grieving processes all in one, because there was mine, there was his, there was our kids, there was our one together. It was just a lot. But just allowing ourselves the permission to be able to grieve how we grieved and not blame each other, because I feel that is what the enemy wants you to do. He wants to attack you when you are down. And he wants you to just attack each other, blame each other, go after each other. And we didn't do that, which was so amazing. And I feel like God protected us in that time. Don't get me wrong. There was times that were very, very hard. But I really, truly feel that God protected us in all that during that time.
Now, you may have mentioned this, Heather, and I'm kind of all over the board with my questions just
That's
because
okay.
I love your story. I appreciate you sharing it. But did you guys know that your son had this kidney disease before he was actually born?
We did not. We were in the minority. Usually women or couples know that they have this polycystic kidney disease. It's detected on the ultrasound. My ultrasound at 20 weeks was normal. So we didn't know that anything was wrong with him until after he was born, and he was having trouble breathing. And then they did more tests, and then that's when they found. But apparently my husband and I are carriers for polycystic kidney disease, and our children, every time that we had a child, since we are carriers, we had a 1 in 4 chance of having a child with that. So having 2 healthy children we had no idea. We just were expecting another healthy child. But ignorance is bliss, because God protected us in that as well. We did not know. We could enjoy our pregnancy, and we did not have to worry or be concerned because we had 2 healthy children, but we did not know that before then.
You've served at a camp for children that have kidney disease. Share with us a little bit about your experiences there.
So it's called Camp Mosca, and it's through the Phoenix Children's Hospital. And it's a place that I did not expect to go back to, because that's the place where our son had passed away. But God has different plans. And one day when our daughter, she had fallen off a stool, she's a wiggle worm, and she wiggled off the stool, and the stool landed on her finger, and it broke her finger, and she had to get surgery. So when we went back to that hospital, if you can imagine, we were brought back to the same room area, the same floor that our son had died. And the reason why is because that was the overflow unit for people getting surgery. And there was another new part of the building that was the new ICU where all the kids go. So that was used as the overflow unit. So God had used that in a big way in my heart, because he allowed that to be a place where I could have closure and just walk into his room again and pretty much face my fear of that hospital. And in that, God showed me that there are these kids that when Bowen was alive, he had to get dialysis. So he was showing me that there's kids that have to get this every day. And he was showing me that these families need you. And if there's anything that I could do for another family, is for them to be able to give them the gift of time with their child, and for them to be able to have more time with their child. So we got involved with Camp Mosca, which is the camp for kids with kidney disease, and we're able to give them camp bags. And now we're able to sponsor their families during Christmas. And we want to do more things. We've had toy and book drives for them. We've had where you can do cleaning supplies. And what's really amazing about being able to do this for the family, that it takes away them having to worry about how are they going to provide for their child during Christmas and buy them Christmas gifts. How are they going to provide them with the things that they need for camp? So it allows them to just not worry about that and just be able to spend more time with their child. And so we had the opportunity to meet the kids and just hang out with them when they did their camp. And it was so amazing, and it was so fun, and it was awesome. It was awesome. It was like, I went up there though thinking that I'm helping those kids, and I walk away and they're the ones that really help me. Yeah.
This Chicken Soup for the Soul book, tell us how we can get access to that. Where is it sold?
It should be sold in any bookstore, Barnes & Noble, but it is on Amazon.com. Right now it's available now for purchase. But I can't wait to get it. I think Alaska mail takes a little bit longer. I haven't gotten my copy yet. But as soon as I do, I can't wait to read all the stories. There's 101 stories in there, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to get a copy.
Yes.
And to read it. And who knows, we may have a contest on Alaska Christian Women's
yes.
Facebook page and give some away.
Yes.
Oh, good
I
idea.
give one away when they come in. I'll let you know.
We'll see. We'll see.
Now, you also use Periscope as well, Heather.
Yes.
How can we look you up on there and follow you through that media as well?
Yeah, so you can just go to Periscope TV/Heather Gillis 6. And I do live weekly devotionals on that. So on Tuesdays and Saturdays, I do that as well. But that's been amazing too, just to connect. I connect with, so there's this group called Perry Sisters in Christ, and it's so funny how you connect with people, and it's just been amazing to be able to connect with other women who are in Christ, and just be able to share God's word and to be able to interact with them. It's just been really amazing. Awesome.
Now, are you available to speak like to women's groups or
yes.
to anybody? And how would they contact you if they wanted you to come and speak?
They can just go to my website or my author Facebook page, heathergillis.com, but I have a contact page on my website as well, so heathergillis.com.
Is there anything else you'd like to share today as we close up our program?
Just it's so amazing what God can do with your tragedy. And if you're going through a tragedy, don't give up. God is with you. He's not going to leave you. He has been so faithful in our journey. And he has never left us. He has been with us every step of the way. And And it's so amazing what he can do when we just allow him to have our struggles. And when we do, he is able to fill us with so much more. And I'm just so thankful that we have a God that we can be able to walk with us in our journeys.
Well, thank you again so much, Heather, for being willing to set aside this time and come in and share with us. We appreciate it very, very much.
Yes, we do, Heather. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to your book. Maybe you'll autograph your story for us.
Yes.
Absolutely. That would be great.
Yes.
Well,
thank
again,
you.
we thank you so much for joining us today on Living Well program. You can find us here every Wednesday on 1 p.m. at KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also catch us online at katb.org. We look forward to catching you all next Wednesday. Thank you.
We have to.
This is